black people, especially those that are poor, even rich ones like your Ramaphosas and everybody, they're still second-class citizens in South Africa. So being black is still a sin. And we're told by other countries that we must do away with coal. And one wonders, if we must do away with coal, why do they keep on buying coal from us? You are stealing people's future. And we can't be lenient with that. In fact, I heard of a story, I don't know if it's true or not, that in China, if you are corrupt, they make your family to buy bullets for you. So they kill you with those bullets. As such, it's not nice. It's really not nice. So if we are to deal harshly with, because Rona, our constitution actually protects life to an extent. So if we are to deal harshly with corruption, that these officials, and we start with these ones of the EFF, if they would get corrupt, they embarrass us, we send them to jail. And the ANC has served its time. It has reached its sell-by date. It must just go. It did a whole lot of atrocities. It behaved as much as the apartheid regime behaved. I mean, if you're to look at how Tatane died, if you're to look at the Marikana massacre, but apartheid regime, I mean, we actually have to be straightforward with it. This was controlled by the DA.
Good morning, South Africa, and welcome to the Social Justice Lab, the platform that doesn't discuss everything, just society. So today we're joined in studio by Commissar Coach, the chairperson of the EFF in the Free State since 2020. I'll just let you just tell them a little bit more about your background in politics and how you came to join the fighters.
Greetings and thank you very much for allowing us to form part of your podcast this morning. Yeah, like you correctly said, my name is Coach Liphoko. I'm the chairperson of the EFF in the Free State. My background in politics is quite long. But shortly, I started participating in politics while I was still in primary, in Botshabelo Primary School. I joined COSAS back then. We were student activists, quite involved in Free Nelson Mandela campaigns and all of that. And then I went on to join the ANC Youth League and as you would know, when we formed the EFF, we were all responding to the clarion call of what was to be done at the time. Economic freedom generation, we all left to join the EFF. In fact, we all founded the EFF at the time, I think. But the idea came while we were still in the ANC Youth League. And then I served in the EFF, I served as the first coordinator of the Bloemfontein sub-region, and then served also as the first chairperson of the Mangaung region, and went on to be the provincial deputy secretary. And then now, in 2022, at Ashwood, myself and the entire collective were elected to lead this vibrant movement.
Very interesting, Mr. Commissar Coach, as you said I should call you, Commissar Coach. So the EFF, as we all know, based on statements made by the leadership, is a militant organization. How do you frame the EFF being a militant organization for our viewers at home?
Highly vibrant, militant, and highly radical. We state things as they are. We break new grounds. There are quite sensitive matters in the society, and unfortunately people shy away from discussing them. And it is in our nature as the EFF to always bring new ideas, infuse proper and visionary views along certain lines, economics, ranging from judiciary, everything, including the outlook in terms of what posture should government take generally in response to the challenges of the society nowadays. So we were quite a vibrant movement, if you were to put it that way. So I know most people would confuse a militant organization to a militariat organization. We're more a militant organization. And that means that if things need to be confronted in a physical way, like we at some point vowed to remove e-tolls physically if push comes to shove, were to do it. And we vowed when we founded this movement that should the ground be hostile, should the environment be made impossible, as is the case in other countries of Africa, we then will have to venture into other means except parliamentary means to access influence in government. So that's what actually describes our militant character.
So what happens to the economic freedom fighters when the fight is won?
Well, you mean when we win government?
When there's peace, what are the fighters in peace? Who are the fighters when it's a time of peace?
Well, when it's a peaceful state, I know from time to time our state would like to venture into violence, which we respond. We respond in violence when they hoy violence at us. But when it's peaceful, we like to, I think we're an organization that is open and transparent, more democratic, pushing for social development, social change in a way that would benefit almost everybody, more so the downtrodden, because you would know that there's a whole lot of social injustice in South Africa, hailing from our history, hailing from our past, which is colonialism and apartheid. So a whole lot of population of South Africa is still held back in clutches of poverty and whole lot of unemployment. So when it's peaceful, we'd like to improve conditions of our people and at least push for a better life for all.
You touched on one of the first items that we had planned for today, which are the past injustices. Namely, you mentioned apartheid and colonialism. What is the EFF stance on addressing these past injustices? And thus far, what has EFF done to promote social justice?
Look, EFF is an international organization. It's a socialist movement that has an international outlook. So by so saying, I'm trying to say to you, because we're a socialist movement, we're anti-colonialism and we're anti-apartheid movement. That's why we were clear, as we're still clear now, about issues such as Free Palestine, and we're speaking harshly against Israel and its injustices and apartheid approach, killing and murdering of people, and genocide in Palestine. And that's not only the case. Our people here in South Africa would know that we are addressing these social injustices, namely those there's still colonialism, just has changed a face. We're now a neo-colonized nation, because whatever you say still had to be ratified by America, and you can actually take a stance that's anti-America. You would remember Ukraine-Russia war. So we're still a nation that is still colonized, as it was the case in our past, in history, where the colonizers would come here and just extract minerals to close to nothing and go back home and develop their countries. It's still the case now. So most people believe that we're a free nation. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If we were free, we would be liberated even economically. That's why currently our stance when it comes to our neo-colonized economy, we are clear that we want to free ourselves from these economic clutches, and we have seven non-negotiable cardinal pillars that guide this process. Land being one of them that needs to be expropriated without compensation. One would know that this was brought by apartheid during the, I think around 1910, 1912. So they brought that Native Land Act from a bill, it became an act. So it is still a social injustice that still exists today. Black people are still marginalized in the main, socially and otherwise. We still are in existence of spatial planning, apartheid spatial planning. And those are things that we speak harshly against. We want to develop cities that people, including those poorest of the poor, black people in particular, and Africans, are brought closer to the cities. And land is land and gets to be given to people who are willing to work it, as the Charter is saying, as the freedom, as the EFF Cardinal Pillar 1 is saying, that land needs to be brought back. And part of what we've done about land is we've given people land without us being in government. And that's the radical nature of the EFF. Some people have reaped benefit out of that character. There are people who are staying now in the land where ANC government was saying, no, you can't have land. And then we took it by force. We expropriated land, gave people residential sites. As I'm talking to you, there are multiple establishments, locations, and areas, settlement areas where our people are having a piece of land that they can at least feel to be part of Africa. So we moved from that neo-colonial, not really moved because we're still neo-colonized, but we're trying to push even though we're not in government. However, I must indicate that in EFF, government is central because we're a socialist movement. We're pushing for socialism. So government is central. That's why we're contesting government via parliamentary route. It's central in us developing, infusing our policies in developing our people further, especially those downtrodden ones. However, I must hasten to indicate that we're not a racial movement. We're a non-racial movement. We embrace everyone, however speak against a whole lot of injustices, including white supremacy. We speak harshly against it, and apartheid, any form of an injustice, a social ill that seeks to alienate and push aside a certain grouping of society. We speak harshly against that. But we're a non-racial movement nonetheless.
So speaking of that, how does the EFF plan to balance promoting the rights of the downtrodden with also respecting the rights of perhaps the people who are not downtrodden?
Well, I think that's a serious disjuncture. If a person is abusive, if the person is a bully, does not provide space for you, you'll have to claim that space. If unfortunately people feel like we are infringing into their rights, they are not the only ones who have rights. We also have rights. So we'll just have to share a right that we get to embrace a human beings, because it looks like black people, especially those that are poor, even the rich ones like your Ramaphosas and everybody, they're still second-class citizens in South Africa. So being black is still a sin, however way you look at it. There's a social cushion around certain nations, around certain races, especially whites in South Africa. So if they feel like we're here to, unfortunately, infringe on their rights, it's unfortunately it's not our intention. Our intention is to assert our rights, assert ourselves that as much as they have rights, we also have rights, and our rights are as equal as theirs. So others are just specification, they're just speculations. Certain, especially whites, would feel that we're intimidating them, we're a violent movement. Unfortunately, we've never done anything violent towards them. We however, seek to have one-to-one and discussions and any form of social gathering we're prepared, including about the land. And this is the topic that we opened even in Parliament. So unfortunately, when people run out of ideas, they hide behind them being abused. And that form of fear is not justified anyway. However, you can't keep on touching and meting out violence to what black people and expect us to take a back seat. Like I'm talking to you, there are multiple cases of farm owners, white farm owners in Thabo Mfutsanyana region, who are killing our people, killing their animals, driving them out of their land, taking them out of their houses, and that's bad, and that's where the EFF does not take it very, very, very light. So if they feel, unfortunately, that we're infringing on their rights, tough. Unfortunately, they'll also have to recognize that we have rights too, and black people, especially poor people, farm workers, have rights as well. So they can't expect us to respect their rights when they do not do the same to us.
Okay, noted. What is the EFF's plan to bring basic needs and services to different demographics?
Well, the first plan is to
considering considering the fact that historically these systems of infrastructure are not built equally.
True. That's why the first plan is to take government via parliamentary route. We are subjecting ourselves to an election process. We know that it's not, at times it's not a fair process. It's a capitalist process. We know it's not fair to us or to anybody who's not a part of a ruling class or ruling party, if I may put it that way. But be that as it may, we are intending to take over government. We are contesting highly in every form of elections, by-elections, local government, provincial and national government elections, we are contesting. And with government being central to a socialist party, would want to use government, one, to not only change legislation, but to better the lives, improve infrastructure, like you're correctly saying. For example, if you look at the ANC ever since it took over the reins of government, what it did was they gave people houses, but those houses never really reinstated the dignity of a black person. So RDP houses, infrastructure being poor, and if you look at the sewer infrastructure, for example, pipes, the diameters and everything, the tender system, those are used to insult black people, poorest of the poor. So in the EFF government, this will be improved, and will have people, a spatial plan being rearranged so that it recognizes that we no longer continues where apartheid ended. We actually ended. That you don't have black people living in Freedom Square where there are two-roomed RDP houses. If needs be, let's build reputable houses to restore the dignity that has been, I think the dignity of a black person has been attacked over years. So in an attempt to improve these infrastructure, we'll have to win over government. And as such, I think we have brilliant people, we have talent in the EFF. And I think that you see when we infuse our ideas, both in provincial legislatures and in National Assembly, that we were full of ideas. We're energetic, we think a lot, and we always think, what can we make better? So these infrastructures and housing, ranging from housing, the entire settlement, schools, the way we're going to introduce technology, robotics, it will be stuff that's never been seen before. And all of that is entailed in our election manifesto.
Okay, no, I think we'll touch on the manifesto as the interview goes on. I do have some questions there,
Sure.
Especially in terms of accountability. But for now, given that you've said all these things about redistributing wealth and ensuring that there is an equitable society where resources are shared, right? How do you plan to bring about the sharing of those resources with keeping in mind the demographics of the country? How do you plan to bring about the distribution of resources?
Yeah, look, resources are forever limited, and that's the honest truth that we will have to face even when we are in government. We, however, would like to there's this notion in South Africa, the rich and whites will always have everything they want. Let's take, for example, the issue of water shedding in the Western Cape. And people had to plead to farmers to release water. And water is a natural resource that everybody should be having access to. And I think if we control certain things, including land gets to be administered by a socialist EFF administered government, will be able to share these things equitably regardless of your scheme. What then would be important is, are you able to meet what is the need of the country? For example, if the resource is land and it's highly contested and you are having a skill and the challenge of the country is, for example, food security, why don't we give land to you? But we're not giving you land. You can't own land. Land is our resource. I mean, it should benefit everyone, including those that do not own it. So we'll lease it to you for a period of time. From time to time, we come and audit. So whatever that is a resource that should be shared, that gets to be given into your custody, would be administered, mainly lands, waters, forestry and such. We'll have to watch them and guard them closely, that we do not plunge the country into some form of a crisis. So that's the intention around resources, especially highly contested resources, be it natural or any form of resource. The idea is to, when you deal with it, it must be used for betterment of people's lives. And you can't just be poor, and when you are poor, you are unable to access a specific resource because you are poor, and will have to sell a resource to rich people for them to own. As is the case, we don't know if we even own South Africa. We call ourselves South Africans, but it might be a resource. Land might be a resource that we're not owning, because in South Africa, the current sitting government allows anyone who's rich from anywhere, even foreigners can come buy land here. It's okay. And by foreigners, it is proven that people would be a British, would be an American. They come here, they own land, and then they use it to farm wine. Well, we have a challenge of food security. So those are the discrepancies that we as the EFF will deal with when around resources.
So land, I think, is a very hot issue for our voters, especially among the youth. So what I'm hearing now is you're going to give a merit-based allocation of land, as opposed to a hereditary-based thing, like your great-grandparents used to live here, you're going to get the land. That's not what the route that the EFF is going to go with. It's based on merit.
You're correct. In our socialist government, what we're going to do, we'll expropriate land. An expropriation of land would mean that land will now be under the custody of government. Everyone, we all know the history of land, that most white people that have acquired land, they have acquired it through the barrel of the gun. And as such, displaced and send our people off from the land, and others even through Native Land Act. It was enacted, this act of mediocrity, it was enacted, it became law, and as unjust as it was, it became law, and we still have to now use parliamentary means to change and amend these unjust laws and at least give our people land. So land, you're correct, is central, and as central as is, we do not also want to play with it. We don't want to be emotional. People will tell you, hey, land is an emotional issue. It's not an emotional issue, it's people protecting their privileges, because land is a means of production, and people are making money out of it. And when you're making money out of a resource, a commodity, a means of production that should be or would have benefited all of us, then it becomes unfair, especially when it's stolen, when it's taken through forceful means and violence. It's unfair. So we'll have to take it, put it under the custody of the government, and then distribute it through merits. Even black people, although we're going to be sympathetic towards them, we just can't give you land, as is the case now that comrades of the ANC are owning land. They are sitting on it doing nothing. At best, what they do, they host parties and everything else besides what needs to be done on that land. So you acquire land, you do what needs to be done with that land, and you will forever be audited. When you are okay and you're ticking all the boxes, it's not a problem. We'll further extend your lease agreement. As to your father had land, a piece of stolen land, and you also must get it now. That's not the approach of the EFF. And I think if we're to speak truth to everything, we'll all know that this land should benefit all of us.
That's a very those are some very interesting points you made, because, like I said, especially now, the youth is very interested, very invested in this land issue, and it's very good to hear it from your mouth, instead of them having to interpret it in policy, which some things might get lost in interpretation for different people. So for you to spell it out is very good. I just wanted to ask the difference between, will there be a distinction and between residential land and land which is used for, like you're saying, productivity, and what will be the law, or what will the rules be, the general rules? What will the EFF be pushing for in terms of residential law and where people live?
Look, residential land is residential land. We can't tamper with. I think everybody has a right to have a residence, a form of housing. So that's the part I think everyone, there should be demarcated sites where people will be given housing. That's the part where we need to develop, urbanize, and at least give it some sense of dignity, that it lives to a particular human standard. If I may, to be blank, and it lives to be in a white suburban standard. I think people would get a sense of what I'm talking about. So that residential land, we're not going to touch your house because we feel. But however, there's this land that is prime. There's land that is agricultural that we need to speak about, that is benefiting a specific person. It's like me stealing your taxi, for example, and selling it to your brother, who will then give it as some form of wealth to his children. Children are making money out of it. What matters is the stolen property that would have benefited a person who it was stolen from. But this is a national asset that needs to benefit all of us. It's like gold. Gold needs to benefit all of us. But however, see, you get given mineral rights, you go mine, and then be that as it may, you get wealthy alone, whereas this gold came out of our land. So the land and everything beneath it needs to benefit everyone, including water. It needs to benefit all of us. So I don't want people to misinterpret the fact that you bought a house, you have a residential land, you have a house of some sort, and now would want to take your house away from you. That should not be the case. What we're interested in, however, is economic freedom. How do we achieve economic freedom? Is expropriation of land in use, the land that needs to be giving us economic freedom. And as such, residential land, well, it restores dignity, which is part of what we're about, but mostly what we're about is economic freedom, because as you would know that we were deemed to be free, but economically we're still in chains. So that, I think, our focus is more on agricultural, industrial land, because there will be people who would have best ideas on how to industrialize Bloemfontein, how to industrialize Botshabelo, for example. Why would you deny them land? So let's give them land for factories. If they need some form of a trade where land is required, let's give them land for that, but ensure that they use that specific land for what is intended for, as is the case in Botshabelo industrial space there. There are people who are having churches. Well, I'm not saying having a church is a wrong thing, but we can allocate space, land for churches, but equally use industrial space, industrial land, sites for what is actually meant to be economic freedom.
You know, like now that we're at a transition, I think you covered that. Right now, if a platform like this, a visual platform, were to fade to black right now, in other countries, people would think, hey, maybe it's cut into a next scene and it's just the normal transition, black fade. But in South Africa, if that were to happen, people would assume that it's load shedding and the electricity has gone off. So one of the other things that the youth is very concerned with, and I know there's a lot of academic work that's been put into this, of the negative effects of load shedding on the youth in terms of school achievement and school attendance and things like that. What is the EFF's energy plan? I know I heard about coal in the manifesto, about coal being a primary thing, and giving a 6 month period to solve load shedding if the EFF has gone into power. Please tell me more about the EFF's energy plan and of course to solve load shedding ultimately. But in addressing that, please say something to the climate change activists as well.
Look, what matters is ANC was caught sleeping on the job, especially about energy, broader sense. And most environmental activists and everybody else out there are worried about clean means of energy. Of course, we are for that. And we are, however, not naive to the fact that all we have right now is coal and nothing else. At best, we can venture into nuclear, but also that needs to be explored with high sense of sensitivity. But we are open. We are for actually a clean green energy. But we, however, as South Africa, the base that we have, unfortunately, our base load is coal. And we're told by other countries that we must do away with coal. And one wonders, if we must do away with coal, why do they keep on buying coal from us? Now we're dealing away with coal. They want to come to us to export it to them. So when you check what they do with it, they actually are getting energy out of the same coal. So I think there's a whole lot of disingenuity when it comes to clean means of energy. We are signatories to a whole lot of treaties, and we are for that, honestly. But we, however, cannot deny the fact that coal right now is the only means that we have. And true to that, we, as the EFF, once we take over power, it's not that we don't want to do away with coal. We want to venture first, so that when we face coal out, we face it out safely. What the ANC did now is a mess. And they continue swimming in a mess, and they just don't know. They don't have clues what to do. So they want to introduce green energy, but at the same time, they don't want to explore. And somehow there are gases out there, especially in the Karoo, where we felt that there needs to be some form of exploration for those gas, and how can we best use them to better our energy, including solar, hydropower. We are for that. The problem is currently what we have as an infrastructure is coal-based. So we're fully dependent on coal, and we need to slowly move out of it. And we can't just do it overnight. We have to slowly venture into ways and means, and we're informed by science how to move. So we want to invest more in research, speak to institutions of higher learning, fund this research adventures such we get a thorough understanding. Like in the Northwest, there's a guy who approached EFF, I know. He suggested that we use solid waste and sewer to convert into clean form of energy. And right now, for example, take Mangaung. Mangaung has a serious problem of solid waste, and sewer sort of runs all over the place. So if you have some form of an ecosystem where we use those human excretes and sewer and waste to convert into clean form of energy, I think we're up for that, as and when we slowly phase out coal. But we're not going to phase out coal just to please other nations that are fully, they themselves, depending on the same South African coal. In fact, they're telling you to stop using it so they can take it and go use it to at least get energy out of it. So we're very careful around that. We give ourselves timelines and time frames, like you said, but we, however, are very careful. At times, the very timeline that we give ourselves might not be feasible. If it's not, science needs to inform us what is the most feasible time frame for us to get to the next phase in cleanest form of energy.
I'm just trying to understand if I'm to get from you, you'll correct me if I'm understanding this properly. I'm going to say it and then you'll correct me. So you're saying you plan to go to a coal-based energy provision system for South Africa. However, as time goes on, you plan to phase it out slowly if and when green energy catches up to the demand of electricity in the country. So you recognize that coal, although it may be what we have now, it's not a sustainable solution to the energy crisis.
Good. I don't know what sustainability would mean in this phase. Actually, coal has been sustainable for years. It's just that when it comes to climate change and all of that, there's a serious impact. And that's where we need to venture. Even nuclear, by the way, there are a whole lot of serious repercussions when we were to venture into it. So what I was saying is, this is what we have. And the contribution of South Africa as a country towards polluting the air, towards this, what you call climate change, is very minimal as opposed to highly industrial countries. So why would we be forced to speedily do away with coal when we know our base load actually depends on coal? Why would we be speedily forced to do away with it when we can be given enough time? Because this also depends on our resources. We're not a fully resource country that can get money from anywhere at any time and somehow deal away with coal. We'll have to at first prioritize ourselves, give it at least a scientific approach, scientific outlook. When we're satisfied with it, slowly phase it out. And once we do that, then coal can be something of the past. That's what I'm trying to say. But however, we need not be pressured by some former colonizers that we need to speedily do away with coal when they themselves are contributing far higher than we do. It simply says, let's say we do away with our infrastructure that uses coal the most to give us energy. It stands to reason that even beyond that point, we'll still be experiencing climate change, and main contributors will still be clinging on to whatever that they use because they're highly industrialized to pollute the air. So contribution of South Africa using the same coal is very minimal. However, we not actually want to cling on to it, even though it's not, like I've said, we're signatories, but we need to be given enough fair time to get out of the system.
I hear you very clearly, Commissar, and I'm sure our viewers will understand the point that you're making. So, Commissar, I think one of the biggest fights that we're engaged in South Africa is that of unemployment in general. It has been persistent for quite a while now. It's been a problem, an ugly problem that's peering out at us for quite some time now. It's not a new issue. So, and we've been inundated with promises that it's going to improve over terms and terms. So the EFF now recently in its manifesto, it made a very ambitious claim that they're going to offer jobs in the millions. So I just want to know what are the jobs for, what are some of the steps the EFF plans to take that are going to be different from the current dispensation in terms of job creation for the youth particularly?
Well, as the EFF, one of our cardinal pillars is to do away with tendering or tender system. And the whole idea behind that is to capacitate the state. You can't capacitate the state where even cleaners are not cleaners of the state. There's some private company that gets paid to come clean. I mean, we can't be that useless state that can't even. The government needs to have skills. Even the lowest form of skills must be there. Even semi-skilled people who are giving us most what you think would be lesser form of jobs at the lowest form of categories. They need to be there in government. So we're going to make government central, capacitated. For example, if you were to go around Free State, you were to notice that road infrastructure, for example, is dilapidated, whole lot of potholes, even here in the city. So I'm trying to say, as the EFF, once you have a company, state-owned company that deals with roads. Apartheid, I think, used to have what you call mpho, provincial government something, but those people were dealing just with roads. It was a state-owned idea, state-owned company, but dealing with. So this one is going to deal with roads. You're creating jobs. And people would say that we stifle the private sector. If it's not living up to its mandate, then we'll have to use the state to ensure that people live a well-sustainable life. And that's what socialism actually means, and that's why we're a socialist movement. So if you are about profit maximization, right now we're having struggle with even with toothpicks. Why don't we have state-owned company? If private sector does not see it necessary for us to have toothpicks, we have to import toothpicks. Papers, and that's nonsensical. So we must use the state. At best, even assist, be central in assist. If we feel that this one can be privately owned, we allow it to be privately owned, but using the state to assist that there is a proper private sector and that responds to the needs of our people. So such state-owned companies, not only that, but in the private sector, we're more interested in ideas, in youth empowerment. Not only that, we want to have centers, and there used to be these centers sometime in the past where people who are selling, the flea market centers, want to have abattoir. Every municipality must have its own abattoir. I think it's nonsensical that there is this. Every shelf in every shop has got meat in it, but this thing is exported from elsewhere. And we must have abattoirs. The state must be in. So there are a whole lot of ideas of creating jobs. At the same time, there's also a worry that we don't want to stifle private sector. But if private sector does not respond to our needs, we see it an opportunity. Like it was the case, I don't know, this EPWPs, this 350 can be used elsewhere where people are given money. If you feel as a form of salary, not just getting 350 and not doing anything. I think it also instills a sense of self-worth. It deals with our dignity that has been dealt with for over years. So we're having a whole lot of ideas, pharmaceutical companies that are owned by the state, but these will be there to create. But you would remember that South Africa, it actually runs one of the biggest campaigns when it comes, campaigns when it comes to ARVs. But those ARVs, we always buy them from outside. Why don't we have our own pharmaceutical company? It's because we listen to some former colonialist who tells us not to have a pharmaceutical company. So we can have these things, a construction company where we build our houses for ourselves. We don't, I mean, right now we're inundated with calls. I'm going to Wesselsbron now. There's over 200 houses that were supposed to be built, were never built. Some tenderpreneur took the money. The state, with a corrupt official, corrupt politician, gave the money away. But if you have a state-owned construction company, these are things of the past. and people are having jobs. So state must be central if we're to create jobs. Not this thing of Ramaphosa that state is not giving people jobs. State actually, in most countries, socialist countries that is the biggest company. So we need to use it as such until there is nicely mapped out and released way of allowing private sector to play the role. But right now it's not coming to the party when it comes to jobs.
You know, in line with the EFF's claim or identity as a militant and vibrant organization, I think a lot of the words that you've been uttering here today have been very vibrant indeed.
Sure.
I think the concern with South Africans is that we've been getting a lot of words for some time now, with little to no action. Now, while I was watching the manifesto, the CIC made the point that the accountability would really be bolstered within the EFF. It's going to be top tier accountability. One of the things that was said in the manifesto in general is that the families are also going to be included of the officials that are going to be in power.
Sure.
Like also going to be included in the accountability process, to the point where if a top official comes with a car, G-Wagon, the family is going to be like, wait, why are you buying this G-Wagon now? What's going on? Please tell me more about that, how you guys plan to bring about accountability and transparency.
Look, we've started already. I think most people would know that in the EFF, we don't clap hands for mockery and laziness, as is the case with some MECs. People are occupying seats with no ideas, no plans, and no action at all. So in the EFF, we would want you to, one, you live a sustainable means of a life. No, corruption will not be tolerated, especially when we deploy you into government. You can't be an MEC and be corrupt. That our service delivery is impacted because of you, and we clap hands for you because you are some provincial chair. EFF is not going to tolerate that. So we need to deal firmly with corruption. And if people look at you doing something that's corrupt, if they themselves know that I'm a family member, I'm also going to get implicated, because either way, when you look at it, these people who are corrupt, their families live off from this corrupt means, corruptly gained money, and this life that is lavish that they are living. Their family actually live off from that. So if they know that you're going to implicate them as well, and they'll be in trouble as well because of your corrupt means, they'll be the first ones to stop you. Now you'll have to tell us. You are earning this much, and all of a sudden you are bringing this much that you can't really afford. So lifestyle audit will be central to our officials and employees in government, especially political principals. We will, however, ensure that even in the judiciary system, in courts, we deal harshly with corruption. I mean, corruption is still lives. People are dying in hospitals. I'm talking to you because there are no machines. People stole money from machines, life support machines. They're not even hospitals, because we see our hospitals are highly flooded with people. Burden of disease is very high, and some politician decided to steal money. We can't build hospitals, we can't build school. So you are stealing people's future, and we can't be lenient with that. In fact, I heard of a story, I don't know if it's true or not, that in China, if you are corrupt, they make your family to buy bullets for you. So they kill you with those bullets, and as such, it's not nice. It's really not nice. So if we're to deal harshly with, because Rona, our constitution actually protects life to an extent. So if we are to deal harshly with corruption, that these officials, and we start with these ones of the EFF, if they would get corrupt, they embarrass us, we send them to jail. And we actually toughen laws around corruption. So that's our view moving forward.
Well, okay, thank you very much, Commissar, for joining us today. I'm happy to have been with you, and I'm sure we'll be talking again pretty soon before the May 29th, right?
Sure.
We'll be talking much before that. So to end off, Commissar, I would just like to hear your final message of hope and vision for South Africa. While you're delivering this, I'd really like you to contrast between some of the other major oppositions to the EFF and what you guys have to offer that the other two don't.
Look, I don't know how to give message of hope under ANC government. There's no hope for South Africans. They must know that. They've fallen in love with the wrong organization that is taking them straight to hell, and they must quickly realize that. Because if they don't realize it, it will impact on the lives of their children. So the ANC has served its time. It has reached its sell-by date. It must just go. It did a whole lot of atrocities. It behaved as much as the apartheid regime behaved. I mean, if you're to look at how Tatane died, if you're to look at the Marikana massacre, ANC is just meting out violence same way apartheid regime did. But apartheid regime, I mean, we actually have to be straightforward with it. This was controlled by the DA. So both DA and ANC have had time to serve, but under the administration, nothing did we benefit as black people, as black majority. So we forever remain downtrodden. The only way to free ourselves from this is through venturing into economic ways of achieving wealth, of bettering our lives. And the only vehicle for that is the economic freedom fighters, because it clearly maps out a way. ANC, I mean, when you look at they are of ideas, shame. Mahotmani, they are just there for positions. I mean, Free State people, for example, had hope after Mapheule had left that Tukwana is going to bring something new. Unfortunately, that was not the case. In fact, Tukwana continues from where Mapheule left off. He continues with corruption. How do you explain that a CFO was implicated during Mapheule's tenure with asbestos corruption? Is now reinstated back, even though that man is now on not really on parole. What do you call this? There's a term that they use with courts when you pay off a certain fee to be released. So that man is still is out on bail. Yes, the man is out on bail. So, but he's back at human settlement, serving the same duties that he did. So ANC has it has no will at all, and people must realize that. And we continue to suffer. We were told of better lives for all. They changed policies from this to that, RDP to gears to Axisa, to everything until now, where they don't really have anything tangible. Where a president would come and say to you, I'm going to provide million jobs, and a week later he has forgotten that he ever said that. And he says that on record. So I'm trying to say to you that our people are deceiving ourselves. This is an illusion that through a vehicle called ANC, you'll achieve something credible. Yes, here and there'll be one or two accidents. I call them accidents. I'm also an accident where somehow I got to go to school to graduate. But majority of us, it's not what happens to us. You get unemployment is orchestrated by the ANC government. Not that they are not aware they're orchestrating government. They're orchestrating unemployment because it rises all the time under their administration. So if you are a black person, you are a downtrodden, at least now in institutions of higher learning, indication is that people are starting to feel the wave of the EFF. They're starting to understand our politics, and even Ipsos and other research findings are indicating that people who are voting for us, we had thought that we were speaking message of hope to poorest of the poor, but even middle class are now starting, the educated people are starting to vote for the EFF. So they must take it from that. No educated people will mislead us. I don't think so. No student of higher education will mislead us. So they must take a good example from them. They must go vote for the EFF on the 29th of May. We really want to bring better life to them, but it's up to them if they take it or not. I mean, we are highly up to here, up to the neck with abuse of the ANC government every day. Anywhere you go, it's judiciary, it's police, politicians themselves, everything is corrupt. We had an incident where in South Africa we had commissioner of police who's corrupt, with a minister of police who's corrupt, with Mbalula who's been a minister of police whose wife was implicated with Hlaudi Motsoeneng in saga ya Free State housing. So I'm trying to say to you, there's no hope in the ANC. You might love it as much as you want, but if you love it that much, you must punish it. Like Kgalema had said, the former president of the ANC, Kgalema Motlanthe, said that the only way ANC can cleanse itself is when it's out of government, because they can't handle sins of incumbency. So that's the only message I have. Let's vote for EFF.
Thank you very much for joining us again, Commissar Coach.
Thank you, thank you. We're very much pleased to be here. Thank you.
And thank you again for joining us, South Africa, here in the Social Justice Lab, where it may seem like it's about a lot of things, but we assure you, it's just society.